Last year, my ex-wife had an affair and decided to leave me. Strangely, instead of heartbreak, I felt relief. From the outside, our marriage might have looked fine, but in reality, it had been empty for a long time. For years, I had been worn down by the emotional and financial stress she put me through. She had a habit of withdrawing large amounts of money from my account, leaving me struggling to cover our bills. Whenever I confronted her about it, she would twist the situation, blaming me for not making enough money. No matter how hard I tried, nothing was ever good enough for her. Everything I did seemed to annoy or upset her. I planned dates, arranged family activities, hoping to bring us closer, but she was never interested. She would complain, get angry, or prefer to stay in bed and sleep. Eventually, I stopped trying to include her in anything. But, of course, that only led to more complaints from her. The documents kept coming back unsigned, forcing his office to correct and resend them. But each time, they either introduced new mistakes or repeated old ones. Some of the errors were astonishing. My name and hers were misspelled, both our birth dates were incorrect, and even our child's name and birth date were wrong. They listed children who weren't ours, got our marriage date wrong, and even had our home address completely incorrect. Somehow, they included properties we never owned, pets we never had, and businesses that didn't belong to us. One draft even proposed a settlement of $500,000 for companies we had no connection to. The sloppiness reached a ridiculous level when I noticed that her lawyer's own name was misspelled in one of the drafts. I actually laughed out loud about it while in the bathroom. It took 7 revisions to fix most of these errors, but even the final version submitted to the court still wasn't entirely right. The final draft still contained major errors. The whole process was both frustrating and strangely amusing because of how frequent and basic these mistakes were. In a way, the constant mix-ups made a difficult situation slightly more bearable. At least they were slowing things down, giving me extra time to prepare for what was coming next. During the divorce proceedings, my ex-wife's lawyer argued before the judge that I should be responsible for covering all court and legal fees. However, I built a strong case against this, pointing out that most of the delays were caused by their repeated mistakes, not mine. The sheer number of errors in their paperwork made it take much longer to finalize everything. Because of this, the judge ruled that I didn't have to pay those fees. After our divorce was finalized, my ex-wife moved in with the man she had left me for. But it turned out he wasn't a good person at all, he was abusive. Meanwhile, I focused on securing my financial independence, starting with changing all my banking details. Once I changed all my passwords, my ex-wife suddenly lost access to my money. It quickly dawned on her just how much she had depended on my income to sustain her lifestyle, and the realization hit her hard. To make things worse, she had been in charge of managing the payments for the house we were living in, a property that actually belonged to her uncle. Because she had stopped making the payments, the house was on the verge of foreclosure. Desperate, her uncle came to me for help, explaining that if I wanted to stay in the house, I'd have to cover the 6 months of missed mortgage payments, an outstanding balance of $15,000. I didn't have that kind of money readily available, so I made a counteroffer. I suggested buying the house from him instead. To my surprise, he agreed. And just like that, I became the owner of the home that once belonged to my ex-wife's grandmother. Now, a year has passed since the divorce was finalized. I've been promoted at work, and the pay raise has made life a lot more comfortable. I still live in the same house, gradually making improvements whenever I can afford them. I haven't found a new girlfriend yet, but through online dating, I've been meeting new people and genuinely enjoying my single life. Looking back, it's almost comical how my ex-wife walked away from a stable life, only to end up with someone who turned out to be nothing like what she expected. Her choices not only backfired on her but also nearly cost her uncle his property. In hindsight, her decision to leave me was one of the best things that could have happened, even if it didn't feel like it at the time. There's always a chance she might try to come back once she realizes the grass wasn't greener on the other side. But if that ever happens, I know better than to let her tears change my mind. She made her choice, and I'll never take her back. Now for an update. November 3rd is approaching, marking a full year since my divorce was finalized. Over the past year, I've made huge strides in improving myself. I started therapy, which helped me focus on personal growth, and I've fully embraced that mindset. I changed my diet and workout routine, shedding over 50 pounds in the process. Soccer has always been a passion of mine, so I decided to get back into it. I've been playing soccer regularly again and even started coaching my kids' youth team, which has been a rewarding experience. On top of that, I rediscovered my love for reading and set a personal goal to read a new book every week. These efforts have paid off at work as well, where I received a significant raise and promotion. This has made it much easier to provide for myself and my child. Despite all the positive changes in my life, my ex-wife suddenly wants to be involved in our lives again. Her latest relationship with the man she thought would be her escape from our marriage has turned abusive. One recent incident was so severe that it sent her to the hospital. Our child was with her at the time and had to call an ambulance. Despite the clear signs of abuse, my ex-wife refuses to press charges or even admit what happened, even though her bruises tell the story. Just last night, I attended a family gathering on my side, where I've always had good relationships with everyone. The family invited me to a gathering, and I made sure to be polite to my ex-wife, but I kept my distance, purposely avoiding any interaction with her. It's clear, though, that her family has convinced her we're still in love, which is far from the truth. While she may have been comfortable with how things were in our marriage, I certainly wasn't. Over time, I became more withdrawn, almost like I was just a fixture in her life, there to provide financial support. In the last 2 years we were together, I felt emotionally drained and exploited. During that final year, she was having an affair with another man. Every time I confronted her, she denied it and would disappear to be with him. When I finally caught her in the act, she turned the blame on me, claiming it was because I hadn't been supportive enough. The truth, however, was that I was giving her everything I earned. After paying the bills, I didn't have money for even the most basic things, new clothes or shoes for myself, for years. And then, just when I thought I had everything figured out, she showed up at one of my kids' soccer games. My ex-wife approached me after the match and asked if I was ready to move back in with her. I was completely shocked and asked her why on earth I would ever do that. She started going on about how we're still in love, how we have a child together, and how it would be better for our kid if we raised them as a family. I had to be honest with her, and told her that I had no love or trust left for her. I even reminded her that she still owed me over $1,100 for getting her car fixed. Her response? She said she'd pay me back if we moved in together. At that moment, I couldn't help it. I just burst out laughing so hard, I had to double over. Seeing me laugh like that made her start crying, which, to be honest, only made me laugh harder. It wasn't the most compassionate reaction, but after everything I've gone through and the progress I've made in my own life, the idea of going back to her, the person who caused me so much pain, felt completely ridiculous. The idea of going back to my ex-wife just seemed like the worst decision I could make. My child still loves his mother, and I would never want to do anything to harm their relationship. If anyone is going to distance themselves, it'll be her, through her own actions. What truly shocked me was her proposal to move back in together. She didn't offer any apologies or show any remorse for her past actions. Instead, she casually suggested we start living together again, as if she had something valuable to offer. Her way of thinking is pretty out there, to say the least. Then there's our child, who had to witness his mother in such a harmful situation. That's something that could deeply affect him, and it's clear to me now that securing full custody is the best way to protect him from being exposed to that kind of environment again. On a brighter note, I've met someone really special. Moving on to the latest chapter of my life, I've met someone truly special. I understand that healing from everything we've been through will take time for everyone involved, but I'm hopeful that we can all eventually find our own happiness, regardless of the decisions we make about our relationships. This past year has been nothing short of a roller coaster. I marked the first anniversary of my divorce on November 3rd, and since then, I've been focusing on personal growth through therapy. I've also been dating, meeting some amazing women, though a few haven't been the best match for me. Just this past Monday, my ex-wife stumbled upon a Facebook post from my girlfriend, Sure. She had shared some photos from an incredible weekend trip we took together. We had great food, enjoyed a few drinks, and had an overall fantastic time, capturing lots of fun moments and pictures. I'm not usually one to post photos from my dates, but this time, I made an exception. I really like Sure, so when she asked if she could post some pictures from our trip and tag me, I was happy to say yes. I knew it might cause some drama, but I didn't expect the reaction from my ex-wife and her family to be so extreme. To give you some background, my ex-wife had been unfaithful for over a year before we officially ended our marriage. She was already seeing someone else when we separated, and she moved in with her boyfriend while the divorce was still going through. Now, a year after the divorce, I've been focused on moving forward. But during our marriage, she was emotionally and financially manipulative, which made things difficult. Unfortunately, she's still abusive, and when I posted those pictures, her hostility toward me reached a new level. On Monday, she twisted the narrative to make it seem like I was the one being unfaithful. She claimed it was shameful for me to humiliate her by posting pictures on social media with someone else, completely disregarding her own actions. She accused me of being selfish and not considering her feelings, calling me a coward for keeping my dating life private. She even went as far as to say I destroyed any chance of us reconciling, claiming that any love she still had for me was killed by my so-called infidelity. As she ranted on the phone, shouting and berating me, I couldn't help but find the irony of the situation amusing. I laughed as she went on for about 30 minutes, blaming me for ruining our relationship and betraying her, despite being the one who had been unfaithful and emotionally abusive throughout our time together. When she brought up my loyalty during our marriage, I made it clear I was always faithful until our marriage officially ended. She didn't stop there. After I made it clear that I had always been faithful during our marriage, she shifted gears and started grilling me about my dating life post-divorce. That just made me laugh even more. I firmly reminded her that my personal life is no longer any of her business. We're not together anymore. I pointed out that, just as I don't interfere in her affairs, she has no right to pry into mine. Despite me setting that boundary, she flooded my phone with a series of nasty, offensive messages, attacking both me and Sher. She even threatened to contact Sher directly to fill her head with all sorts of negative stories about what it was like to be married to me. I told her she could go ahead and try if she really thought it would make a difference. Then, as if that wasn't enough, my ex brought up the idea of meeting Sher in person. Apparently, she wanted to see what kind of woman she is. She even implied that Sher must be a terrible person for daring to be with me. She accused Sher of being a homewrecker, as if my relationship had somehow ruined a happy marriage. That was the moment I had to seriously question whether she had any grasp on reality. I reminded her, plain and simple, that our marriage ended over a year ago, and she was the one who had an affair, left me for another man, and filed for divorce. That's when she completely broke down. Through her tears, she admitted that she had been clinging to the hope that we might somehow reconcile. She complained that it wasn't fair. I had moved on while she was stuck in a miserable situation. She insisted that I should be spending time with her and our child, as if we were still a family. This entire conversation made one thing painfully clear. My ex-wife was completely disconnected from reality. She refused to take responsibility for her own choices, the very ones that led to the end of our marriage. Recently, she even admitted to me that she's unhappy in her current relationship. She said her boyfriend doesn't treat her well. Honestly? That didn't surprise me one bit. Her confession wasn't exactly shocking. I had suspected as much for a while. But hearing about her problems didn't bring me any satisfaction. In truth, I feel nothing for her anymore. There's no lingering affection, no bitterness, just complete indifference. The idea of getting back together isn't even a consideration. If anything, I'd prefer if we didn't have to interact at all. On the flip side, my life is in a great place right now. I've found real happiness with Sher. She brings so much joy into my life, and I genuinely look forward to every moment we spend together. She's the last person I talk to before bed and the first person I message in the morning. We're even planning another trip soon, and I already know it's going to be amazing. I'm well aware that sharing photos from our trip might set my ex-wife off again, but honestly, I don't care. My happiness is worth more than any reaction she might have. Looking back, it's clear that she always tried to keep me under her control, always wanted me to feel guilty, trapped, or responsible for her choices. But that chapter of my life is over, and I have no intention of looking back. Being cast as the villain, classic narcissistic behavior. To those giving me advice, you're absolutely right. I need to keep our interactions strictly about our child and avoid getting pulled into endless, meaningless conversations. I'm also prepared for the possibility that she might spread lies about me, but my focus now is on moving forward with a positive mindset. Looking back, it's hard to believe it's been 2 years. March 21st, 2022, that was the day everything changed. Late one night in 2021, I uncovered not just one affair but evidence of another, possibly more. After 23 years of marriage, 2 biological children, and a stepchild, I spent a full year trying to mend. I filed for divorce in April, and by June, everything was settled. The relief I felt was immense. It was like I had been given a new lease on life. Until then, I hadn't truly understood the depth of the stress and fear I had been living with. Looking back, I realize all the mistakes I made. After discovering her betrayal, I handled it all wrong. Instead of taking the time to process everything, I rushed into trying to fix the relationship without addressing the real issues. We didn't immediately seek therapy, and that was a major oversight. By the time we did, it was already too late to make any real difference. Our children had completely lost respect for their mother, and I was left feeling devastated, humiliated, angry, and grief-stricken. I was barely making it through each day, feeling like a walking zombie. In April of last year, I was overwhelmed by the number of people who reached out to offer their support. After my ex-wife launched a smear campaign against me on social media, accusing me of everything imaginable, from abuse and rape to stealing a large sum of money, she conveniently omitted any mention of her own actions. In response, I posted a brief public statement to defend myself, making it clear that none of the accusations were true. I acknowledged that some people might feel the need to distance themselves from me, but I also hoped others would be open-minded enough to let me prove my innocence. During this time, I focused on improving myself. I got in shape, dropping from 250 pounds to 185. I also made a major career shift, stepping into a new role with a promotion. I had planned to spend the summer indulging in a little revenge by casually dating through phone apps. It was around this time that an old high school classmate reached out to me. She lived far away and was planning to. She had gone through a similar breakup, discovering her partner's betrayal about 6 months after mine. We began checking in with each other regularly, offering mutual support and understanding. When I traveled to Knoxville for work, we ended up texting one night, catching up and sharing our experiences. I had been looking forward to checking out some live music during my stay, excited about the 2 upcoming nights. But contrary to what I'd imagined, my summer didn't turn into a series of casual flings as I had jokingly anticipated. Instead, what I got was a summer filled with beach outings, live music, distillery tours, since she was a big fan of whiskey, and just having a fantastic time, something I hadn't experienced in years. As the summer faded into fall, As time passed, our relationship deepened. We met each other's families, spent Thanksgiving with hers, celebrated Christmas together, and even took a trip to Las Vegas for a long Super Bowl weekend. Every shared experience brought us closer. Now, as I celebrate my 52nd birthday, I can finally say I'm truly happy. My last few birthdays had been rough, but this one feels different, exciting even. She's on her way to move in with me. As a nurse, she managed to land a job in my city here in the South in no time. She's keeping her house and letting her daughter rent it out, which gives her flexibility while we take this next step. If a friend were in my position, I might have advised them to slow down, to be cautious about moving in so soon. But for us, it just feels right. We're not rushing into marriage or anything like that, just 2 people tired of navigating conflicting schedules and missing out on time together. We're moving in together is our way of seeing if our relationship is as strong as we believe it to be. On this forum, I see a lot of people talking about karma or seeking revenge on their exes. In my case, my ex still sends me drunken texts, sometimes apologizing, sometimes blaming me for everything that went wrong. One moment she regrets losing me, the next she insists it was all my fault. But the reality is, I'm so much better off without her. I'm less stressed, I've found someone truly incredible, and she's far more than I ever expected to have in my life. The way she cares about me is almost surreal. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if it's too good to be true. In the end, I feel like I've already won the best kind of revenge, by simply living a better, happier life. So here's my message to anyone going through heartbreak. No matter how devastating your experience was, it is possible to move forward and find happiness is possible again. Sometimes, people don't realize what they had until it's gone, but by the time they do, you may have already moved on to something better. When you finally make it to the other side, you might see that losing them was actually the best thing that could have happened. I'm sharing my story to remind you not to give up, no matter how difficult things get. It's never too late to start fresh. Prioritize yourself, trust in your ability to heal, and believe that things can and will get better. I rebuilt my life at 50, proving that a new beginning is possible at any age. And that's it for today's update. If you've been following along, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. Until next time, take care.